So we're back with another story from the manga theater, which this one, I am going to say that I think a lot of people are going to be very excited for this one, because this is kind of like if it was an alternate universe where we had a race that's similar to Frieza's, but more of like a superhero story. And I think this is a very interesting story because this is something I was not expecting. Also, I didn't realize that chapter 1 was going to be the longest out of all the short stories I've read so far. So this is going to be probably like a 3-part series for just the story. So we'll see what happens for the next chapter, but for the time being, we're gonna make this either a 2-part or 3-parter. But anyways, this story is called Cashman, and this is the one thing I think a lot of people are gonna be very intrigued of, which is a move that Vegeta uses. Yes, it's kind of something I was really shocked to see in this story, and I do want to point out that these stories actually take place between the beginning of Dragon Ball and like the earlier DBZs, and especially with the Aurelie stories. This is pretty much all of his short stories that he made on the side during those times, but also this is before even Majin Vegeta showed up. So I do want to give people the grain of salt about what this book is all about, because I just want to let people know that this was made before Vegeta even got this move. And I think it's very intriguing that they even thought of this and then put that move also in Dragon Ball Z as well, because I just thought that was very fascinating and intriguing. But anyways, the story is called Cashman, and it's about an alien that crash lands on Earth because it got shot down by thugs that he was trying to chase, which he's kind of like a Galactic Patrol officer, kind of like Jacko is, but a little bit different. But anyways, he crash lands onto this Earth, which he accidentally kills one human being and takes his identity because he's trying to figure a way of how he can get his ship to run so he can get back to his own planet. So even though it was a coincidence that the guy he killed and took his identity was an actual cop, which is kind of funny because he's a galactic cop and this guy is just a regular cop on Earth. So he ends up just doing normal patrol things and stuff like that. And the only way for him to actually be able to get back to his planet is if he gets gold. Now, as it says in the book, he has to buy this gold somehow, and the only way to get it is he's got to pay a lot of money. And the guy he took over his body pretty much just makes average wages, so he doesn't get like a huge amount of money. So he's trying his best to figure a way of how he can make more money so he can find a way to get gold and go back to his planet. So as he takes on his human form during the times that he is just a patrolman or whatever the case is, when there's bad guys around, he goes back into his alien form and pretty much calls himself Cashman. Yes, even though his name is Diora, I think it's funny that he just give himself a superhero name in some way, so he calls himself Cashman. And it's funny that he calls himself that because every single time he goes up to somebody, it just sounds like he just says, I will beat this guy up for you, save your life if you pay me. And that is why I am called Cashman. But like, he asks for a lot, which is kind of funny because I was expecting like him saying like, give me like $100 or something like that. But no, it's like, give me $1,000 and you got a deal. But anyways, after he gets some money off of these folks that he saves and all that, he goes back to his human form, and sure enough, then he finds out not too long after he gets back to the office that there's this huge explosion, and sure enough, the bad guys that took him out actually crash landed as well because they ran out of fuel for some weird reason. So that's when Cashman has to go and save these people, even though he probably would be asking the police officers at the time that were there to see these goons, pretty much he probably would ask them for money. But because it was people that he was trying to take out in the first place, he kind of just got distracted from that and was like, it's time to fight. I'm taking these guys out now. So even though he takes out one of the guys with a pistol, the other guy, he uses a blast from his foot, which is the Big Bang Attack. This is the attack that I was really shocked to see in the story because this is Vegeta's iconic attack in the show. And I just think that's very intriguing and fascinating that this is another thing that Akira Toriyama took from his work. And I'm kind of seeing how everything just flows around in his stories, because it's like, it just feels like almost like every Deborah that is like been shown so far. Like, we have technically 3 Deborahs. If people know, there's one from the manga that we are going to be looking at very, very soon. There's Sandland, And we have the door from Dragon Ball Z. So this is where things are going to be very intriguing to see a lot of things just going all together, and just it's a fascinating way to just see him take all of his ideas and put it into one. And I think that's the case. He just had the best IP that he made, which was Dragon Ball, and just decided to say, hey, here's all these little Easter eggs from these other stories, let's put them into the main story. Getting back to Cashman, I do think it's very intriguing that it ends off that way, and there's 2 more chapters that we got to finish off for this story, which I just think this is a really great way to end it as a review for this chapter, because even though, yes, we got a little small battle out of it, and then sure enough, then we had a bigger battle. I just thought that was a really good way to just end a chapter in general. So I wanted to stop here for now because I thought this was a great way to just summarize part of this story, because even though it was kind of its own short story in general, I just think it's very intriguing that they have a continuation to the story, and I just felt that this is a good way just to stop for the time being, and then we will continue on with the next 2 chapters. My review so far for Cashman is I have to give this at least an 8 out of 10. This is actually a really good story. I really liked it. The flow was really good, very quick, fast paced. It was just so enjoyable that I think it's very intriguing, and there's just maybe something about the character that, like I said, kind of has like a small resemblance to Frieza, just the way his face is. But I know he doesn't have antennas or where the case is, but when I first saw it, I just had this weird vibe of like, oh, Frieza, for some weird reason. I know it's not Frieza, I know it for a fact, but I just thought it was very intriguing that, like, if this was an alien version of Frieza from an alternate timeline, that could be the coincidence. So anyways, guys, we will finish the next 2 chapters, maybe in the next video, depending on how the story goes. It's just I felt like this was definitely a good way to stop for this particular chapter and do a video for it, because I just thought just the pacing and everything was good for it. It was really, really good. And there's a lot of information already in chapter 1, so I didn't really want to just put it all together into one, just because I felt like it would like take away what chapter 1 was. And I just think it's a very intriguing way of just talking about what the story is about before we finish the story off. So hope you guys enjoy watching. Get ready for the next chapters to go for this particular story, and I can't wait to finish it off. It's really good so far, and I can't wait to even read it myself. So, other than that, guys, hope you guys are watching. Hit like for more, subscribe new, and I'll see you, of course, in the next videos. Peace out, everybody. Have a great day.